Hello, everybody. Please say hello if you're there. Welcome to the live stream. Hello, hello, hello. Please say hello. Say hello if you're there. Everybody might be watching the Depp Heard trial. I don't know. But we're going to talk about Balwani's trial, and we're going to talk about the Depp Heard trial. So please join me for the live stream. Give everybody a couple seconds here. Hit that like button too. Yay! We're coming into the chat. So hit the chat. All right. Hello, Internet. Thank you for joining me. Yes, subscriber 8. Right on. Hi, Matthew. Thank you for joining me for the live stream. Put your questions in the chat. What do you want me to talk about? Balwani, Depp and Heard, the Supreme Court leaked opinion? Go ahead and put it in the chat. Okay, so anybody else joining? Let's see. A couple other people are coming in. Hit that like button and do subscribe. Please subscribe if you want to participate in the chat. Please subscribe to the channel if you want to participate in the chat and put your question in the chat. Balwani, yes, we will talk about Balwani. Definitely. I'll give everybody a minute or so here before I get started. Yes, Balwani. Because I guess everyone else is watching the Depp Heard trial, right? Okay. All right. There's more people coming in, joining us for the live stream. That's great. Thank you for joining me. Yeah, it's a bit soapish. Well, it's a very, very sad situation. You know, sometimes that happens in relationships. It's horrible. It's horrible that they're suing each other. I don't think either one of them are doing any help to their careers. So I will talk a little bit about that if you want, but very public. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Sometimes defamation lawsuits are, sometimes they're legit and sometimes they're used for other reasons. So, and I'm not suggesting that he's doing that. I just think that Johnny Depp believes his reputation has been damaged and that she's the cause, her allegations are the cause of that. So we'll see what happens in the Depp Heard trial. Okay, I'll just hang out here for a little bit longer. Oh, I posted the poll too. If you want to go ahead and vote in the poll for the community name, I've got the runner. It's a runoff between 4 contestants here. I think the poll should be there. Are you guys seeing the poll? Let me know. It should be in the chat. No, it should be there. Okay, let me know if the poll's there in the chat. And then let's see. Okay, so got a couple more people coming in before I get started. Thank you for joining me for the live stream, everybody. Yes, Matthew voted. Thank you. Thank you for voting on our community name. I'm going to adjust the camera a little bit here. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for letting me know. Hi, Foxfire Institute of Shamanic Studies. Right on. Thank you for joining us. Please do subscribe to my channel. All right. So let me know. Again, Firefox, what do you want me to talk about? Because we've got a couple votes for Balwani. We can talk about the Balwani trial. We can talk about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's trial. We talk about the recent Supreme Court leaked draft. Those are some of the things I thought I would talk about in the live stream. So please go ahead and put your suggestions or your questions in the chat. Okay, so let me go ahead then and start. So thanks again, everybody, for joining me. The draft. Okay, I will talk about the draft. The leaked opinion. Okay, so thank you for joining me for the live stream. Please do, as you join the live stream, please say hello in the chat so I know you're there. Please put your questions in that chat so I can get to them. And then also I posted a poll for what name shall we call us, our community? We have a couple contestants there, the analyzers, the legalizers, the shells, the clerks of court. So go ahead and make your vote for what the community name is going to be. And I'm also going to post it on the community tab. And okay, and also, by the way, I know there's this super chat or chats, which if you want to support my channel, I'm going to put a link here to PayPal if you want to support. These videos are a lot of work, and I appreciate any, support you want to give. So subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll give you the link here. I'll post it in the chat if you want to make a support with PayPal for this channel. Okay, so let me go ahead and get started then. So I thought I would do is talk about the Balwani case. Sunny Balwani is currently on trial for 12 counts of fraud. Elizabeth Holmes was the co-defendant and the alleged co-conspirator. She's been convicted of 4 counts, 1 count of conspiring with Balwani to defraud investors, and then 3 counts relating to defrauding investors. The jury was not able to make a decision on the other 3 investor counts, and the patient, the patient counts, she was not convicted of. So Balwani, his defense so far as I've been able to, and again, this video is just my opinion, so I want to know what your analysis is. So put your questions in that chat. Their defense, Balwani's defense, is that, it was Elizabeth's company. She made the call. It was her technology. He just walked in the door. He was COO. The buck stops with Elizabeth Holmes, I think, is what they're arguing. But what we've heard this week is we've had investors testify. We had Patrick Mendenhall, and then, sorry, I'm blanking on his name. We had the other investor. Let me get the draft here. Hang on a second. Get the complaint. So we had Tolbert, Brian Tolbert testify, and they're trying to tie these investor witnesses' testimony to Balwani. And they are trying to do that, the prosecution is, because they want to have the jury find Balwani guilty of these investor counts. So if you look at the prior video I did on the one I just did yesterday on the audio tapes, the investor call, that's Elizabeth Holmes. It's Elizabeth Holmes. Sunny Balwani's not on any of those calls. But if you look at the video I did prior to that, the investor call and Tolbert to testify, there is, I think it's in that video where I talk about Patrick Mendenhall's testimony, where he said he had conversations with Balwani. Balwani made representations to him. So that ties Balwani potentially to these investor counts. But we have other investors that still are going to be testifying. And that's Alan Eisenman, who invested $99,000, and he testified in the Holmes case that he had quarterly calls with Elizabeth. I didn't hear any testimony with Alan Eisenman having any conversations with Sunny Balwani. So I don't know how they're going to tie that one to Balwani, but maybe the umbrella is that one of the counts or 2 of the counts are conspiracy to defraud investors and patients. So maybe they'll get in those statements that Elizabeth Holmes made relating to the conspiracy, when 2 or more people agree to commit a crime. So that'll be interesting. We'll see if that happens. We also have Dan Mosley. He invested $5.9 million into Theranos. He has yet to testify, and I don't recall him making any statements regarding any conversations he had with Sunny Balwani in the Elizabeth Holmes case. So we'll have to see how that turns out. The other thing is, what else is coming up is, I want to give you just a quick preview here of the patient's testimony. So we have 4 counts relating to patients, and we have the patient witnesses are probably going to be next, or they could maybe call Dr. Dobbs, who was the lab director they brought in at the very end. But anyway, the patient counts. There's patient BB, And that patient was not able to testify in the Holmes case because the prosecution failed to turn over the blood test results for patient BB in a timely manner. So the judge didn't allow them to present evidence on that count. So that count, and it's count 9, was dismissed. So we'll see how they handle patient BB. But if you've been following the Balwani case, there's a lot of testimony to show that Sunny Balwani was the one who oversaw the lab. He was the one in constant communication. And if you look at a couple of the prior videos I did where I show you the text between Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny Balwani, he's constantly, this is what the prosecution alleges, he's constantly updating Elizabeth Holmes on what's going on in the lab. It's a mess, we're having problems, we need to hire different people, etc. So that goes to knowledge, potentially, what I think the prosecution might argue, to show that Sunny Balwani knew that there were problems with the lab and the results and the technology. So we'll see. So the other patient is E.T., and that's Erin Tompkins, and she testified in the Holmes case. I think it was her doctor, Gerald Asen, who testified, yes, Matthew, I do think Sunny is closer to the patient counts than Elizabeth. If that's what the reasoning is, that's what one of the jurors said in the Holmes case, is that that's why they didn't find her guilty on the patient counts, as they said they didn't think, this juror said, he didn't think that she was close enough to the patients to hold her responsible. I think it's a different story for Sunny Balwani because there's constant text between the two of them. Although there is an argument, he's always reaching out to Elizabeth and getting her input. So maybe the defense could argue, no. It's Elizabeth who makes the call. She's the one who's calling the shots here, not Sunny Balwani. He's just doing his job. I don't know if that's what they're going to continue to argue. We'll see. Anyway, regarding this Erin Tompkins HIV test that was positive when it turned out to be a mistake, there was good evidence presented by the defense, or at least reasonable doubt evidence presented by the defense in the Holmes case regarding how they tested for the IV, how they did the IV HIV test, and it turns out that there were turned out to be a false positive. So whether that amounts to reasonable doubt, we'll see. Then there's also patient Merrill Ellsworth, who's a dentist in Arizona, and he got a false prostate cancer result, which obviously turned out to be a mistake. So his doctor, Dr. Mark Burns, testified regarding getting the results and why he thought they were inaccurate, and his concerns that there were issues with the test. So we're probably going to hear from the dentist, Merrill Ellsworth, and possibly his doctor, Mark Burns. And then here's the fourth and the final patient-related count, is the Horizon Media campaign, the ad campaign. Theranos spent $1.1 million to put as an ad campaign in Arizona when they were rolling out the wellness centers in the Arizona Walgreens. And the representations that were made in those ads, both on TV, radio, social media. So that was count 12. And again, Elizabeth Holmes wasn't convicted of any of these counts. But I think the story might be different for Balwani because of his, he was constantly at the Newark lab, and he was constantly talking to Adam Rosendorf, the lab director, and several of the employees about what was going on. So it's not going to be easy. It's not an easy case for the defense on this one. But, all they need is one juror, right? Because you need a unanimous verdict. In the Balwani case, it's a criminal case. They need a unanimous verdict. They need all 12 to agree. If they can get one juror to think that the buck stops with Elizabeth Holmes, or that there's reasonable doubt, as to this HIV test, as to the prostate cancer, test, or as to, whether or not the ad campaign actually rolled out in Arizona. So that's testimony to come. So we'll see. All right, so what questions? Matthew's asking, so do you think they will call Parloff? Possibly. They possibly could call Parloff. The other thing about Parloff's the one who wrote the Fortune magazine article where Elizabeth Holmes made a lot of statements. There was a lot of preparation, and I think this is maybe how they may tie Balwani to this. He may have been involved in the preparation as far as the questions. I know there are texts or there's emails that suggest that he wasn't there during the interview, but whether he was involved in the preparation. And the other thing is those text messages. And I think I'd send the video where I say that is Holmes playing the media. If you look at that video, you'll see the text messages where Sunny alerts Elizabeth that, oh, that's the Carrier. Yeah, did they talk? I do think they do talk about Parloff's article in that text. So we'll see what happens. They don't tell us ahead of time who they're calling, so I don't know. All right. Any other questions regarding Balwani? Oh, and to let you know, scheduling. They're not going to have trial on Friday in the Sunny Balwani case. For the next 2 weeks, they're going to have trial on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. And currently, the trial is scheduled out now to mid-June. So I think it's still on the judge's calendar, at least till June 15th or 16th. However, during Memorial Day, etc., we're going to have a couple days where they're not going to be in trial. So we still have a ways to go in this trial. And there's still a lot of evidence that the prosecution needs to present to tie up some of these counts to prove that Sunny Balwani is guilty of any of these counts. We'll have to see. And again, the defense attorneys have not put on their case yet, right? So we don't know what evidence they have to suggest that, it was Elizabeth Holmes who was calling the shots. She's the CEO. It's buck stops with her. Sunny Balwani was simply doing what he was told. He was just doing the software. He wasn't the one who was making management decisions. But there's a thing about the investors that also might implicate Balwani, which is that if you look at Lisa Peterson, the DeVos video, you'll see that Sunny Balwani is the one who reached out. He's the one that gave the wiring instructions regarding their $99 million investment for the DeVos family. So, Sunny was involved in the financials or the investment there, and also the financials too, the projections. There's text between Elizabeth Holmes and Sunny where he's asking her if she's comfortable with the projections of the financials, asking her to get comfortable. So, that is evidence that could implicate Balwani. We'll see. All right. So what do I think about Tyler? He had a personal relationship, but not with Sunny. I don't know that they're going to call Tyler Schultz. I don't know. Like I say, did he talk to Sunny though? I think there was, actually that email with the scatter plots. And if you look at the video I did on Tyler calls out Elizabeth Holmes, I think Balwani was CC'd on the email. I don't remember. But he's telling Elizabeth Holmes that there's variance issues with the results of the blood test. And if you look at the video I did yesterday, in that investor call, she talks about it only having less than 5% variance. And Tyler Schultz, in that video where he calls her out, he shows that it's more than 5%. It's 24% or 30-something% variance. So whether or not these tests, the technology, the Edison, the blood testing was fast, accurate, and reliable, that's the jury's call to make. But there's a lot of evidence to show that it definitely could implicate Balwani. Sunny's nasty email to Tyler. Yeah, that could go to, that's a good point, Matthew. That could go to, that potentially could go to his knowledge. Why is he so-called harassing Tyler or telling him to go get a math tutor? Remember that? If you look at that video I did on the emails where Sunny was told that Tyler was raising questions about the accuracy, about the representations that Theranos was making regarding their blood testing. and Tyler showed some. I'm trying to think who it was Daniel Edlin, I think he talked to about this. One of the employees at Theranos had a talking with Tyler and tried to explain the math to him, right? And that's when Sunny said he needs a math tutor. So I don't think the Holmes jury thinks that Tyler Schultz needed a math tutor. So, okay, let's see. He had emails. Nasty. Okay, any other questions regarding Balwani? Let me see if there's anything else I wanted to suggest to you regarding Balwani. I think that might be it on Balwani. We'll see. Patient, witnesses probably up next. I think the case is probably going to go a little bit longer than we think because the defense hasn't put on their case yet. So it may be more than June. We may go past more than June. Okay, so let's talk about why haven't they called or charged Daniel Young? I don't think they need Daniel Young's testimony because Adam Rosendorf testified to some of it. Erica Chung testified to some of it regarding the reliability, the accuracy of the test results, the technology, how the Edison was operating. Daniel Young, I mean, that's, again, whether or not anybody else gets indicted or charged, that's up to the up to the government. And I think at this point, because the indictment for Holmes and Balwani, I think, was 2020. And the time frame that they allege in the indictment, and again, you can look at my indictment video I did, it was 2010 to 2015 are basically the years, and we are sitting at 2022. I don't know. I don't know. It might be beyond the statute in order to charge anybody additionally. I don't know. But I think, it seems like he's a co-conspirator. Well, to me, when I was watching the Holmes trial and, and looking at a lot of this evidence, again, this is just my opinion. I don't know why people stayed as long as they did sometimes. I mean, I know they have to pay their bills and stuff, but when questions were being raised, and, again, the Theranos was in stealth mode until 2013, right? So, it was 2013. And the charges are 2014 and 2015. So there wasn't a whole lot of time period in which Theranos was actually, rolled out their technology to the public. And I think at that point, I mean, there is some evidence to suggest that the technology was working during periods of time, maybe could be argued. But I think in particular these time period, and I think that's why the government probably chose those years, was that there was clear evidence, as they allege, that they had issues with the technology and with the results and whether or not their representations were truthful or fraudulent. So, hi, Mary. Thank you. And if you want to give a super chat, I put a link in there so you can hit up my PayPal account. Hit that subscribe button, the like button, and do subscribe to the channel. And thank you for joining my live stream. Okay, Mary, let me know. What do you want to talk about? If you have any questions, you guys have any other questions? Because I don't have anything else on Balwani at this point. Anybody else? Gone on Balwani. Anything else? Okay, so let's talk about what I thought was interesting. I'm going to move now to the Supreme Court, the leaked draft opinion regarding an abortion case pending before the Supreme Court. It's called Dobbs, D-O-B-B-S, Dobbs versus Jackson Women's Health Organization. Basically, Jackson's Women's Health Organization sued Mississippi state officials for passing a law that prohibited women from having an abortion after 15 weeks, which is against the rulings of Roe versus Wade and Casey, which Roe versus Wade is a 1973 opinion where the majority of the court found that there was a constitutional right to an abortion. Okay. And they implicitly found the right within the Constitution to say that women have a right to have an abortion prior to the trimester. They had the cutoff on the first trimester. So Casey came out in 1992 to say that women have the right to have an abortion, but not after 26, I think it was 24 or 26 weeks. So this case, the Mississippi case regarding the Gestational Age Act, is further narrowing the window in which women can have an abortion. So the plaintiffs, the Women's Health Clinic, is arguing that it's unconstitutional, that Mississippi law is unconstitutional because it violates Roe and it violates Casey. Well, in the draft opinion that was leaked, it's pretty clear that that judge, the justices, the majority of them by Judge Alito's opinion, I think it's a 5-4 at this point, I think is what's been reported, 5-4 vote in favor of overturning Roe versus Wade and Casey. And their reasoning, and you can look at my video, and thank you to those of you who've watched it. It was a little long, but it's a good education for everybody. The reason the court is, their reasoning to overturn Roe versus Wade and to overturn the constitutional right is one, to say, there are three reasons. One, to say that abortion is not mentioned in the Constitution, therefore it's not a constitutional right. Number two, it's not rooted, abortion is not deeply rooted in our history, in our nation's history, in the American history. Number three, they say the prior cases, Roe and Casey, were wrongly decided. Therefore, we don't have to rely on precedent. Okay, now the blowback that's being reported is that the reason this memo was, or this draft opinion was leaked, was for political reasons, was to get the public involved, whatever side you're on here, to get the public involved to maybe sway the opinion because it's a draft opinion, right? The final opinion isn't out yet. What's also interesting, if you look at that video, the date of the opinion is in February. This is May. So between February and May, there's a lot of revisions that go on, right? The other thing is that some people are pushing back by saying, during the confirmation hearings of these justices, of the recent justices, they are asked whether or not they're going to follow precedent. And precedent, in stare decisis, same thing. Precedent means prior cases. And several of the nominees testified they would follow precedent, right? Well, here's an example. This is, what one of the arguments is. I'm not saying I agree. I'm not taking a position on any of this. I'm just putting this information out there for education and informational purposes. So what do you think? Okay. Yes, Sammy, aloha to all. Hey, Sammy, by the way, on your comments, you might need to do a little editing so I can post them, if you know what I mean. Okay, but I love your comments. And also Matthew and several others, your comments have been great. Okay, sometimes things to be, yes, I agree with you, Mary. Yes, sometimes cases do need to be revisited. And in the opinion, the justices do point out that they have overturned prior cases. Okay, so let me get to precedent also means that you throw out bad decisions. Absolutely, Alan. True, very true. So what's interesting that I found out is that when the court was deciding what the decision would be in the Roe versus Wade case, a memo was leaked to the public then. So here we are again, deja vu, right? We're revisiting Roe and we have a draft opinion that's leaked. And I'll tell you, let me just read to you that at this point, it looks like Justice Alito, Clarence Thomas, Justice Gorsuch, Justice Kavanaugh, Justice Barrett are all the 5 votes that are, according to that draft and according to some of the reporting, and again, I don't know if this is accurate, they're the ones who are the 5-4 to overturn Roe. And Justice Roberts, the Chief Justice, he's the one who writes the opinions. He assigned it to Judge Alito. He has stated publicly that it's an egregious breach of trust for this draft opinion to be out there. Now, it's not rare for sometime there to be leaks, but what's rare is that we got the entire draft opinion. So history-wise, when have leaks occurred before? Is that we had in 1852, the New York Times reported in the Pennsylvania versus Wheeler case, 10 days before the justices handed down their opinion, that what they released excerpts from potential language from the opinion. And then later that year, the Tribune published a running account of the deliberations in the Dred Scott case. So what's going to be the impact of this, having a leaked opinion, right? Are the justices going to be deterred from wanting to talk to each other, from wanting to have deliberations? Are they going to come up with security measures regarding draft opinions? Apparently, the draft opinions are like burned or put in, they are treated so that they are destroyed so that no one can get a hold of them. So I'm pretty sure that they're going to find out where this leak came from. And again, Justice Roberts ordered the marshals. He didn't order the FBI to investigate. He ordered the marshals to look into it. So we'll see. So also, there was a 1968 leak in the Supreme Court when the New York Times shared the details of one of the justices, Justice Abraham Fortas, his activities to support the Vietnam War. That was leaked, and that was leaked by a law clerk. And then in 1972, June of 72, when the Washington Post published Justice O'Douglas, William O'Douglas's memo to colleagues regarding the impending Roe versus Wade decision. So here we are again. Now we have a leaked opinion regarding, the Dobbs case, but also questioning the reasoning in the decision in the Roe versus Wade case. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. But I thought that was pretty interesting. We've been here before. And so I bet you the outcome of this is going to be I bet the Supreme Court is going to establish strict rules now regarding how you deal with draft opinions and, restricting what law clerks can do and potentially having access to certain information. I bet you they're going to start imposing some rules. So we will see on that. Any questions here? I don't recall Scotus ever leaking a ruling beforehand. Well, they have leaked excerpts. That's happened, as I indicated, but they've never leaked an entire draft opinion. So, some people think it's political. Some people think it's to sway a vote by some of the other justices if they see the public's response. I don't know. Let's see. If SCOTUS has ever become polarized, it's game over for democracy. Well, some people think it is polarized, right? We have five judges who want to look at the past history, who want to look at the deeply rooted history. And if you read that opinion, I'm just going to throw this out there. If you read that opinion, I have to say, I had to take a pause. And I took a pause when they got to the point about, women can lobby legislatures, women can, women can vote. Well, I think this is an issue for families, right? Men are involved in this too. So I thought it was, I don't know, that was kind of an odd couple sentences there for me anyway. But they want this court, if this decision comes down as it is, 5-4, with the majority voting to overrule Roe, that puts it back to the states. So we're going to have state by state deciding whether or not they allow abortion, and if they do, what the restrictions are, or whether they prohibit it. What's the impact going to be? And the justices, I think in this opinion, talk about democracy, that people have a right to vote on what, state by state, let the people vote, as opposed to what they say in this opinion, having the court decide. And I think they call it a absolute authority or something to that phrase, that the Roe court in their decision. So we shall see what happens here. Okay, any other questions? Any comments regarding? And again, hit that like button. Also, if you want to do a super chat, because I can't do a super chat on this, I don't have enough subscribers yet, but they're coming, right? And thank you to all of you who have subscribed. But if you want to do a super chat, go ahead and I put a link in the chat for the PayPal link. Okay, let me see what else here. What other questions here? That has to be the lamest excuse. The loss of Roe versus breathing is also not mentioned in the Constitution. That's true. And women aren't mentioned in the Constitution either. And minorities aren't mentioned in the Constitution either. So, but this court, they have laid out their opinion, their reasoning as to why they think Roe was wrongly decided and why they think Roe should be overturned. I am with the court. It should be a decision made by the representatives from each state. I agree with Scotus. It's politicized, but they can work things out. They can work things out like tossing out Trump's supposed evidence he won that. If they were truly polarized, Trump would still be POTUS. Well, again, I don't want to get into politics here. I'm just reporting what's out there, and I think it's good to know this information. However you feel about this topic, very good point. Yep, that's true. Okay, so let me see what else here. So there are 9 justices, and there has been talk about increasing the number of justices to 11. So that might happen. We'll see. We'll see. And there's also been talk about the reason they leaked this draft opinion is to get the codification. In other words, the legislature to codify, to put it into federal law that women have a right to an abortion. But do they have the votes for that? I don't know. But again, this is just a draft opinion. It can be changed. So we don't know what the final votes are going to be. And Tony Katz is saying, I'm ready to fight for this. I'm sure there's a lot of people, men and women, ready to fight for this, for this right. And yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one. Congress doesn't have enough time to do that. Well, that's a point. I think that it's going to certainly turn up the discussion about states' rights, constitutional rights, and what our Constitution actually says, and whether we want to amend it, to add, because it wasn't, women didn't get the right to vote. There was a lot of Constitution amendments that were added. I think we have 25 or 26 amendments to the Constitution. So I think there's a possibility people may be revisiting what the Constitution says. So any questions, comments? Anybody? Okay, thank you. Again, thank you for joining me for the live stream. Okay, so shall we look at... let me see what else was here I wanted to talk to you about. Oh, one of the measures that they thought about implementing that's been talked about regarding how to keep these opinions, the draft opinions secret, is having security clearance issued. Like they do with the CIA and the FBI and stuff, have security clearance. So in other words, certain law clerks, and by the way, these opinions, most of the time are written by, a lot of the time, not entirely, but they're definitely written by the law clerks, right? So the judges go through and, make changes. And again, these draft opinions are circulated among the justices. So, and we don't know what the dissenting opinions, those who may disagree with what that current draft opinion says to overturn Roe. We also don't have concurrence opinions, who agrees, but for different reasons. That still hasn't been decided. And I think the decision, is coming out, I think it's in June or July at the latest. Let's gossip about Johnny Depp. Okay. All right. So I just watched just the last couple minutes there of the testimony. Okay, so I got to give a disclaimer here before I talk about Johnny Depp. And guess what my disclaimer is? My disclaimer is I'm a former domestic violence prosecutor. Okay, so I'm going to look at this case a little differently maybe then you might look at it. And so I may not be as objective as you'd like me to be. I don't know. I'm just putting that out there. And again, this is just my opinion. Oh, somebody said Alan said it would be very difficult to get security against a law clerk leaking. Let me just briefly go back to this point with Alan. So, first of all, the leak doesn't appear to be, there doesn't appear to be any statute or any law that was violated by this leak. So I assume that these justices are probably going to create, or whoever, the legislature will probably create a law that will have some consequences. So they prohibit and deter whoever did the leak from doing this. Because currently, I don't think it's a crime. It may be it's definitely an ethical, and if whoever did it is licensed as a lawyer, I'm sure there's going to be repercussions. But there is a code of conduct that these law clerks have. So I think it's an internal discipline, meaning the justices and with whoever did this. But I think it's going to. I think the justices are seriously going to consider how they're going to deter this from happening again. We'll see. So breach of trust for employment. Good question, Alan. It depends on what the employment agreement says. I'm sure it's a breach of the code of conduct, but what the consequences are, I don't know. And I don't know what happened to that law clerk who leaked Justice O'Douglas's memo regarding the Roe case back in the 1970s. I don't know what happened to that law clerk, but I think everybody's on notice here. And the Supreme Court is in our Constitution, so it's the supreme law of the land, right? And it's the political process, right? It's the nomination process of who gets on the Supreme Court, and it's the hearings that we have to determine, our representatives determine whether these potential justices are fit to serve, and that's what happens. Several of them recently have been put on the Supreme Court, and their opinion, they lay out in that draft opinion what the reasoning is. All right, let's see here. U.S. Code, unauthorized. Thank you, Sammy. Disclosure of information. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that applies, Sammy, but I'll look into it. So thank you for letting me know about that. So Mary, someone needs to be fired and face. Yeah, I'm sure whoever did it will be fired, and I'm sure there will be consequences. I just don't think it'll rise to a criminal. Although I don't know, I don't think it'll rise to a crime at this point. Great information before midterms, though. Yep, definitely. Right? Yes, the midterms are coming out. So how are people going to vote? Is this decision going to sway people? And I know, there's talk out there about if abortion is in jeopardy, then maybe same-sex marriages are in jeopardy, or maybe the right to vote for certain people's in jeopardy, or maybe, you can even go to segregation, all of that. Because none of that's in the Constitution. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying I take an opinion. Okay. Yes, Joanne. Hi, Joanne. Sharing of confidential information. Yes, but I don't think there's a law. I don't think there's a law in the books that makes it a crime. Yes, it could violate their employment agreement, and yes, it could result in whoever did it getting terminated, but we don't know. And the other thing that's odd to me is it's a February. The date of the draft opinion is February. Did they just pick it up in garbage somewhere, or was it on one of the emails? Was it something got breached in the security regarding emails? I don't know. We'll find that out. Okay. So let's talk about, shall we? Shall we talk about the Depp versus Heard? I got any votes there? Are we thumbs up? Are we thumbs up on that? Do hit that like button. Please subscribe if you want to participate in the chat. Please subscribe to the channel. Okay, so shall we talk about Depp? And, back to my disclaimer. Okay, I tried a lot of domestic violence cases. I issued a lot of domestic violence cases as a prosecutor. So I'm very, very, very familiar with the cycle of violence and, what happens to victims, both men and women, okay? And you have to keep in mind so again, just as a disclaimer out there, take whatever I say with a grain of salt, okay? And make your own analysis. And I want to know what your analysis is. But there's something I want to point out to you. There's a couple things. Number one, this is a defamation lawsuit, right? So did Amber Heard make a false statement about Johnny Depp that damaged him? That's basically it, okay? A false statement. So in that op-ed that she wrote in December of 2018, she didn't name him. He's not mentioned. His name is not in that. So how do you draw the conclusion that it's Johnny Depp that she was referring to? Well, some people say, well, everybody knew because she alleged in 2016, a couple of years prior, that he had been abusive. She got a restraining order, etc. Okay. But the law says it has to be about the plaintiff. Okay. So what evidence is there to say it's about the plaintiff? So that's why they're rolling out all this testimony about what happened to Amber Heard, all the acts of the alleged acts of domestic violence, everything from, being shoved up against the wall, a glass thrown at her, her nightgown being ripped off, him doing a cavity search, him putting a bottle, all the stuff that she's alleging, getting the restraining order. His testimony, his witnesses so far have been, it didn't happen. She's lying. It's a false statement. She's not a victim of domestic violence. Therefore, I have been defamed. If you watch the video I did on what Johnny alleges and the 5 reasons, first of all, this is going to be a very difficult case for Johnny Depp, I think. And again, I could be wrong. And I'll tell you what's most compelling to me. What's most compelling to me is that Amber Heard reported the domestic violence to several therapists. It's documented. It's documented according to that expert witness, Dr. Hughes, yesterday. And I know Johnny Depp has a lot of fans. I know that, and I'm not a fan of either. I don't. I'm not hip. I don't keep up with all that stuff. I'm just looking at what the evidence. So what's compelling to me is that she reported it. It's contemporaneous reporting. It's not like she came into court and talked about it with having no witnesses, not having told anybody. And that happened in a lot of cases I had, in cases where the victims recanted because they were in fear, of being killed, or in fear of losing their job, or in fear of having their kids taken away, So, and domestic violence does happen to men too. Okay. And she admitted, not only did she report, so it's corroborated back in 2012, she reported from the very first incident, slapping, he slapped her allegedly 3 times in the face. Okay. Again, I'm putting my, this is just my opinion. So it's contemporaneous reporting at the time. Number 2 is that she admitted to these therapists and to this expert witness that she did engage in acts of violence. And it's not uncommon to have violence going on. Now, this is a very toxic relationship. And you know what I think the true damage is? The true damage to their reputation? Because Amber Heard is also suing. She's also suing Johnny Depp for defamation and for computer crimes. And I'll get to that in a second. This trial is damaging to both of them, I think, in my opinion, because we're having to hear all this stuff. I know hundreds of thousands of people are watching this trial, which I think is great in the sense that a lot of people are learning about domestic violence. And I hope to gosh, they never get involved in a toxic, dangerous relationship. Okay. And, sometimes when you have wounded people who are traumatized in childhood, and Amber Heard is or will be testifying, she was abused by her father. Johnny Depp has testified he was abused by her mother. You put those 2 together and it's very volatile. Okay, if they haven't worked out, and this is just my opinion, I don't know, it's just my opinion. I don't mean to offend either Miss Heard or Mr. Depp, but it's complex. It's very complex. So I'm just looking at this, analyzing the evidence. She reported it at the time. She admitted that she engaged in the violence. According to her expert witness, Dr. Hughes, it wasn't to the level of violence of Johnny Depp. But the other thing about cycle of violence, and when you're in these relationships, jealousy, Stuff that Amber Heard has testified to, allegedly, right? Jealousy, accusing her of being unfaithful, his obsessive focus on her. What I find is very telling too is the conduct after he files a lawsuit. There's an attorney out there who's making statements, and there was a whole social media campaign that she claims, Amber Heard claims, this whole smear campaign to ruin her. So that's why she's suing him for defamation. But if you look at what the video I did on what she alleges Johnny Depp did, if you read those texts that Johnny had sent her and sent Paul Bettany, those texts, they're very vile. They're very vicious. They're violent. The language, that's not going to be helpful to Johnny Depp. And also, the bigger picture here, is who's on that jury. This case, jury selection is critical. Who's on the jury? It's mostly men are on this jury. Mostly men. Who are the people outside cheering Johnny Depp on? Okay, and again, I'm just presenting both sides here. Who are the people? If you watch the case, look at who's in that courtroom. Who's sitting in the galley? It's mostly women. And I'm not trying to be sexist or gender here. I'm just saying, based on my experience, the men are going to be evaluating Johnny Depp too, and Amber Heard, right? And those texts, the contemporaneous reporting, her admitting that she engaged, because on the other side of this, you could say, is that she's made this all up. She's made it all up because it's publicity. She released the op-ed 3 or 4 days before the Aquaman movie came out, where she was in one of the leading roles. She did it to get publicity. It's a smear campaign. Yeah, it's not. The other thing, let me tell you, the other reason why I think this is going to be hard for Depp is he has to get a unanimous verdict. All 7. I think they have 7 jurors and 2 alternates at this point. 2 alternates have left. I don't know who's actually, and I guess in Virginia, they don't tell you who the 7 are. But they have to make a decision that she lied about being a victim of domestic violence. She lied. She said that it was Johnny Depp, right? That it was a complete lie. That's a hard one to prove, right? When she's on the stand testifying for hours now about all the incidents of violence that happened to her. Whether or not they believe her, I don't know. But Johnny's defense is basically she made this up to ruin him. And here's the tricky point. The tricky point of this is that causation. He has to prove, Johnny Depp not only has to prove that she's not a victim, that these violent acts never happened. He also has to prove that that op-ed, and that because of that op-ed, because of those allegations of abuse, it damaged him. It damaged his reputation, and he lost the Disney, the Pirates franchise opportunity. Well, the other thing I think the jury's going to hear is that there was an issue regarding it. And again, this is what's reported. I don't know if it's true, so please check it. But it's been reported that Johnny Depp was not able to be insured because of his substance abuse. Okay, so, or was it because Disney had issues with how he was acting? It's really hard to tie it to. It has to be a direct and proximate cause. Her statements, her op-ed, were the direct and proximate cause of the damage to him. That's a hard one. And the other thing is, what she's arguing is that her op-ed was protected speech under the First Amendment. She was talking about what's called a public concern or a public interest privilege, talking about domestic violence, trying to rally reform around it. You can go ahead and look at the video I did, what Amber alleges, and I think it's in what Johnny Depp alleges, where I show you the Washington Post op-ed that she wrote. And you can read it for yourself and make your own analysis. But, if it's a subject, even if it's false, even if she lied about being a victim, he still has to show that he has to show that she didn't have the privilege to talk about something of public interest. In other words, domestic violence wasn't to the readers of public interest to them. That's not easy. The other thing he has to prove is by clear and convincing evidence, which is a higher standard than in Virginia. It's called greater weight of evidence, basically 49-51. He has to prove by clear and convincing evidence that she had done this because of hatred and ill will towards him, which I don't think is going to be easy to prove either. So it's complicated. Defamation cases are very complicated. I think there's blurring between reality and fantasy in this case. Depp is, to many people, the sum of his acting roles. Yeah, well, that's the thing. Whenever you have high publicity, high profile people as clients, there's always, people have a perception. They think Johnny is as he appears in his movies, right? Swashbuckling hero, this great actor, and they look at Amber Heard, and maybe some of them think she's a great actress too. And, so you have to break through. We saw that in the O.J. Simpson case. We've seen it in other, high profile cases where you have to get past the persona and get to what actually happened. So what amazes me is that both were drunk and drugged. Well, yeah, this is very common in domestic violence, substance abuse. And when you're raised in a family like both of them were, where there was a lot of violence, they have what's called a trauma. There couldn't be a trauma bond, where you bond with someone because you recognize the trauma, the wounding that they had. And the thing about domestic violence is there's always a honeymoon phase. Otherwise, you would leave. I mean, flat out, you wouldn't be involved in this, right? If you're constantly being bad, and I'm not talking about them. I'm just saying if you're constantly being battered or abused by somebody and there's no love there, then you're gone, right? But if there's love, and she's testified repeatedly how much she loved Johnny Depp, how she wanted to fix him, and that happens when you grow up in families where there is abuse, there's violence, or there's substance abuse. Sometimes people want to save people. And relationships, sometimes they're the working ground. This is where people work things out. So, or not. Yeah, there's no winners in this mess. None. I think having those texts come out, having the pictures come out, having those audio tapes of her admitting to hitting Johnny, to all of that, I don't think it's going to be helpful to either one of them. Really, I don't. And I think it's really unfortunate, in my opinion, that this is going on, and I wonder what the outcome's going to be. What do you guys think the outcome's going to be? What do you think? I mean, he's suing her for defamation. He wants $50 million plus punitives. She's suing him. And I thought what was interesting is in her counterclaim, she's suing him for defamation. She's suing him for computer crimes. Remind me to get back to that. But when she asks, and you can look at that video I did where I walk you through her counterclaims, she asked for a restraining order against him, a permanent restraining order. He didn't ask for that. He didn't ask for that in his lawsuit. The other thing, and again, former domestic violence prosecutor here, so I may not be objective. I look at body language here too. Okay. And yes, I know she's an actress, and I know she just gave testimony that was very traumatic about what happened, allegedly. He doesn't look at her. He does not look up from that table. He doesn't look at her. He's got these tinted glasses on, and I find it surprising that a judge would allow someone to wear tinted glasses in court. And by the way, this judge is a good judge, in my opinion. Okay, good judge. She keeps the cases going. She does, say stuff overruled on that ground. Like there might be another objection. She did say, what else did she say this morning? She says you have no objection to any of them when one of them wants to bring in evidence. So this judge is she's very present. She's keeping control. She also, lets the gallery know if they're, making comments, to admonish the galley to just, all the spectators to just, be quiet and not react to some of the things. This is a very good judge, I think, in my opinion. Maybe a win without results. You win, but no money. Well, I'll tell you this, Amber Heard, based on the testimony that I have seen, she is very emotional on the stand, and this happens when you're recounting trauma. I know she's an actress, but sometimes it can be very cathartic. Can I say that? And some people think that Johnny Depp is doing this just to further harass her, and it's more violence. And, sometimes defamation cases are used when you try to silence someone or you try to further harass them, or they're totally legitimate, right? That op-ed piece completely damaged his career. Totally legitimate, right? But what we do know is that in the UK, a judge, not a jury, in the UK, when Johnny Depp, he filed the lawsuit against Amber Heard for defamation, and then he also filed a lawsuit for defamation against The Sun. That judge, it was decided by a judge in the UK, different system, different burden of proof, right? And also The Sun publication, because they called Johnny Depp a wife beater, they had to prove that statement was true. In the United States, Johnny Depp has to prove it's false. Okay? So that judge found 12 out of the 14 allegations of domestic violence were substantially true. And Amber Heard testified for 4 days under cross-examination, submitted a bunch of witness statements. Again, that's just a judge's opinion. In our system, this case will be decided by a jury. If Michelle ever wanted to teach, yeah, I've taught. I've been a law professor. So thank you for that. I appreciate the compliment. Thank you. Thank you, Internet. I appreciate that. I really appreciate your perspective. Thank you. Yeah, I think this is a great education on domestic violence. And, things to look out for. If you get love bombed early on, if it's an intense relationship early on, right? They shower you with love. They shower your family with love. Those are red flags, by the way. If they try to, make comments on your clothing, red flag. If they are having people check up on you, red flag. I'm not talking about this case. I'm just saying these are the typical red flags that we look for when we're dealing with domestic violence cases. So, when the violence escalates, starts with throwing things, punching, choking, it's horrible. And there's a real threat to both men and women when they do leave these relationships, right? There's a whole lot of complexity going on in domestic violence relationships. So, when they start intense, that's also a red flag. When they want to exclude you from your family, that's a red flag. When they tell you that you can't do this kind of a job, that's a red flag. When they tell you have to, when they start controlling you, that's a red flag. When they start using violence, when they start using, vulgar language, etc., that can be red flags. These are all potential red flags. So, okay, any other questions? I don't want to keep you guys too much longer here. And again, hit that like button. Do subscribe and share these videos. And if you want to do a super chat, I put the PayPal link in the chat. And I appreciate that support. And I appreciate all of you really supporting my channel. I didn't know if it was going to work or not. I didn't know if anyone cared about my, wanting to dive deep on these cases and try to explain as much as I can, about the law, because I know there's a lot of questions out there. And the other thing is I've also realized that, some of the reporting, and in all due respect to reporters and journalists out there, they didn't go to law school and they didn't try cases, and, they may not have that perspective. So, and, people repeatedly ask me, and people still reach out, can you please provide more analysis and explain stuff? So thank you, all of you, for giving me the opportunity, the platform to actually, share what it is I know. I'm not always right, but I try, and I try to do my research. So let me see. Again, thank you for your time. Thank you, Mary. I raised 4 daughters and 3 granddaughters. I told them all the same thing. Yep, if he hits you once and you let them get away with it, he'll hit you again. Also, if she hits you once, she'll hit you again. It goes both ways here. Thank you very much, Sammy. Thank you. Thank you to all of you. Okay, so I want to say to all of you, have a happy Mother's Day weekend. And happy Cinco de Mayo as well. Yes, thank you very much, Foxfire. Thank you, all of you, for joining me. So if there's any other last questions, I'll call it a wrap. Please do vote in the poll on our community name. And please keep those comments and questions coming too. I appreciate you all watching my videos and asking and making great comments and questions. So thank you all to joining me. And again, enjoy Mother's Day weekend. Do you think Sunny Balwani will walk? Joanne asks. No, I don't. I don't think Sunny's going to walk. And it could be a split verdict. In the sense that, when jurors are looking at 12 counts, they may say, that maybe he's not so involved with some of the investors, as they did with Elizabeth, right? She was only convicted of 3 of the 6 investor counts. But I think a lot of those text messages and the emails regarding him overseeing the lab and his relationship with Elizabeth, the constant communication, I think that's probably going to implicate him. And I think he's probably going to get, I don't know. I think he'll probably get convicted on some of these patient counts, possibly, or the investor counts. But, I haven't seen the defense case yet. It could be a complete wash. He could walk on everything. I haven't seen the defense case. So, and likewise, in the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, jury's got a tough decision to make. But I think the burden of proof is going to be tough for Johnny. The unanimous decision is going to be tough for Johnny, as is going to be tough for Amber. She needs a unanimous decision too. So we'll see. Okay, so I want to sign off here. I want to say thank you to all of you for your time. Thank you for joining me. Enjoy your Mother's Day weekend. Happy Cinco de Mayo to everybody. And thanks again for joining me on this live stream. And please do vote in the poll what our name's going to be, and keep watching. Thank you.